out might sound exciting, but it is about the dullest work in the world. The first day I'd been following my only suspect was a bust. Simon worked, he went home, he slept. The next day, things got more interesting. Around noon, he left work and drove to a two-story house in an older neighborhood on the east side, close to the San Antonio city limits. Most of the surrounding houses weren't occupied, and for sale signs littered the block. Some of those houses weren't in the best shape, but they were still livable. If they didn't sell soon, that might not continue to be true. I kept an eye on the house, but nothing moved all afternoon. No one came, and no one left. An hour after the sun set, I decided to take a closer look. The car would be safe thanks to an enchantment that was already activated. It was easy to set up, but required a lot of ingredients, so it was nice I only had to do that once. The spell caused passers-by to avoid the space the car occupied, but made them believe the area was empty. It was convenient for stakeouts. I walked toward the house and considered the best plan of attack. The windows had blinds that were closed. The garage that Simon pulled his car into was out since the door made a lot of noise when it was opened. Knocking was an option I quickly dismissed because Simon knew me. A full frontal assault would be expected if this guy were any kind of criminal, which I had my doubts about. The front of the house was out, so I headed to the back. The gate was open and the lock looked broken beyond repair. Around the corner there was a small cement platform that served as a patio leading to a door that didn't look all that sturdy. I took in the rest of the backyard before heading to the door. There were no trees or vegetation other than a few patches of grass. I could just make out where the fence ended. The moon hadn't risen yet, and nearby houses were dark. I approached the door and put my hand on the knob to test if it was unlocked. Before the knob started to turn, a ward flared to life. Startled, I jumped back, turned, and ran. It could have been any kind of spell, and I didn't want to be close if it was the destructive variety, like the one that made the entire house come crumbling down. That was a mistake I'd be okay not repeating for the rest of my life. Not to mention a building crashing down on you hurts like hell. The doctor said it was a miracle I survived with only 7 broken bones and a concussion, but I knew it was only my quick thinking with a spell that saved my life, one that created a wall around my skin. Afterwards, I studied that spell until I could call it up on a moment's notice and hoped to never need it again. I made it to the back of the yard where the fence separated this house from the one behind it, before hearing the snick of the back door opening. I dropped to the ground and covered my head. The dark corner should hide me from view. For once, I was glad my stepdad had burned it into my brain to wear black whenever doing any investigation. My dark hair draped over my glow-in-the-dark white skin. Okay, it didn't actually glow, but I was very pale. I peeked out of my corner and saw Simon step onto the deck. Look away, I whispered and pulled on a tiny amount of energy. He peered into the yard, passing his eyes right over my dark hiding place. He walked around to the side, then shrugged and turned to go inside. Before closing the door, he rested his hand on the knob and stood there for a minute, resetting the ward if I had to guess. I silently thanked the universe it was only a warning system. Maybe he'd been expecting someone. I rested there until my heart stopped racing. When I finally felt calm, I stood up. My legs were still a little shaky. I took a deep breath and headed back to my car, contemplating this sudden turn of events. This was why Simon wanted me out of his sight as soon as possible when I went to interview him. He must have sensed me. But I should have been aware of him. It was one of the quirks of playing with the supernatural. It was really hard to hide from other mages at close range. There is a certain level of energy that anyone who plays with magic has around them. There are ways to disguise it, but that's usually more effort than it's worth. Unless you need to hide from another mage. The fact that Simon intentionally hid from me was a good sign he was guilty, although not necessarily of the crime I was investigating.